The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gam Podcast Network is brought to you by Arctic Fantasy. They're coming to customers, play just $5 and $100 once funds. Use the promo code SGPN. And welcome everyone to the Tennis Gam Podcast here on the Sports Gam Podcast Network. It's currently Friday night, October 31st, around 11:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm Scott Reichel once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the two matchups taking place in the semis in Paris on Saturday. Break down those two matchups in a second. Before we actually get into that, though, reminder, support the show by liking, subscribing to YouTube. Reminder, podcast you can also find on Spotify and Apple. So you want the audio formats only, that's fine. You can check out the SGPN Tennis Game Podcast on Spotify and Apple. But a reminder, like, subscribe on YouTube, and leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple to help the channel grow. Plus, a reminder, check out the actual merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great merch for the tennis show. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs, different colors, very affordable and comfortable. So I recommend checking out the collection that we have. Plus, a reminder, you can check out all the shows in SGPN in one easy location because we do have an SGPN feed on Spotify and Apple. So if you want to find all of the podcasts we have for the NFL, for Major League Baseball, for the NBA, for college football, for the NHL, they're all live, and we've got podcasts giving out free picks for everything. So subscribe to the SGPN feed to get easy access to all those actual podcasts in one easy location. So check it out wherever you do get your podcast. So starting off with the recap of what happened in the actual quarterfinals. Unfortunately, not a good episode for us. Ended up losing the lock and the dog. I'll do the dog first because that was a lot more lopsided. We had Vacherat plus 1.5 games at plus 102. Not even close. Got killed by Felix. The runner-up play was Bublik, but instead I went for Vacherat, and Felix killed him. I really never close, 6-2, 6-2, and Felix jumped on him early and really never let him up. So nice performance there by Felix, who was vulnerable for the first couple rounds, but he played his best match in a couple weeks, and he was able to destroy Vacherat in straight sets. However, for the lock, bit of a heartbreaker. We had Medvedev money line at minus 115. 2 match points right down the drain. He was up a set. He was up a break in the second set. Fell apart. Then he got back on track into the third set. Had 2 separate match points. First one, a great serve by Zverev. It is what it is. Second one was one of the weakest second serves you'll see all week. Zverev hit it allegedly at 81 miles an hour. I don't believe that. I think it was closer to 60, at least on TV. And Medvedev hit this atrocious return to set up a Zverev easy put-away winner. So Medvedev had a great look at a second serve on match point. Had 2 chances at it, couldn't convert, and eventually did end up losing in a final set tiebreak. Heartbreaker for Medvedev and for us because he had 2 match points, but either way, just could not get it home, finish losing in heartbreaking fashion. So it is what it is. Picked up a loss there for the lock and dog. Anyway, getting into the actual recap of the matchups that we ended up seeing in the quarters. Overall, good tennis. You had 2 matchups that were pretty ugly, 2 that were very, very good. So for the actual bad matchups first, Felix beat Vacherat, said it before, as Vacherat no-showed. He went from 200 plus in the world to about 30th. And after the great run he was on for about a month, he went back to 200 form because he got destroyed against Felix. Other matchup was Sinner against Shelton. We picked Sinner in straight sets. Bunch of people love Shelton because Sinner was injured, even though Sinner had won 15 straight sets against Shelton. People didn't really care. I did. I was going to dare Shelton to do anything, and he did not, as Sinner beat him comfortably, 6-3, 6-3. Never close. Sinner was up a break early in the second set. Shelton got the break back, and then Sinner broke him again, so it didn't matter in the end. But either way, Shelton, at the end of the day, is just not good enough in terms of rally skills and tolerance to beat Sinner, and Sinner kind of coasted, despite not being at his best physically for the first 45 minutes of the matchup. But Sinner coasted, which was kind of what we expected. And Sinner is back into another semi because he's the best hardcourt player in the entire world. Moving on to the other matchups, though, the 2 fun ones. Bublik outlasted de Minaur. Great match in general. Bublik lost the first set in a breaker, won the next 2 sets 6-4, 7-5. 0 breaks in the entire match. So we know de Minaur is a great returner, one of the best returners on the entire tour. Bublik held him in check, did not get broken in the entire match. De Minaur, though, was serving bombs, a crazy serving display by de Minaur, who did kind of go for broke a lot. He had 9 double faults. 12 aces, though, so a solid number there for de Minaur. And Bublik won despite only winning 32% of his second serve points because he won 89% of his first serve points. So Bublik found a way to survive. Wasn't easy. Got the break there at the end, courtesy of the double fault by de Minaur. And then Bublik held it out to win 7-5 in the final set. Great match. You could argue that was match of the day. It was definitely kind of a 1A, 1B scenario with that match and the last match of the day. But Bublik got the job done, and he was, of course, it was good for us. We had Bublik money line. Unfortunately, though, I did not take that as my dog, which I probably should have in hindsight. But either way, Bublik did get there. Fun matchup, came down to the wire, and he was able to outlast Dimonauer in an absolute marathon, 7-5 in the final set. Then you had the Medvedev match against Zverev, which I kind of just summed up the entire ending in the lock recap, because Medvedev had a couple of match points, didn't convert, and then Zverev ended up winning in a breaker 7-5. Very fun. Medvedev went up a set. Zverev had a bit of a fall there, grabbed his hamstring or his quad, thought maybe he might be injured. Then he was fine, and he was able to change the script. But Medvedev, in classic fashion, up a set and a break, unraveled, fell behind a break early into the third set. Medvedev's wife left the court because he was yelling at his coach again, got the break back, and then eventually you had yourself 2 match points, didn't convert, and then ended up losing in the breaker. So definitely 2 matches that you could argue were pretty even in terms of quality, and we ended up seeing Zverev finally beat Medvedev, who had lost 5 in a row against him, had lost in 9 of the last 10, and he almost lost again, but he found a way to survive, so nice job by Zverev. Bad for us because we have Medvedev, but really no regrets. You have 2 match points, you can't convert, is what it is. But either way, nice win for Zverev, and we end up having a pretty solid collection of matches taking place on Saturday. I mean, Bublik and Felix and Zverev against Sinner. So really solid matches that we're going to have on the card for Saturday. Thinking if there's anything else worth talking about, and I don't think there actually was. Yeah, I can't really think of anything for actual talking points. So let me just quickly see if there's any news I'm missing here. No, I don't see anything. I know Sinner is still going for number 1 in the world. He can officially surpass Alcaraz again if he ends up winning the event, I believe. But either way, point is we'll see if he gets there, and we'll see what happens. As for the WTA, they named a new person to a high position. Valerie Camilo is now running the WTA Tour. Do I care? No, not at all. I don't know if that means anything, but we have a new leader of the WTA. So if you care about that kind of stuff, it is under new management. Yeah, that's basically it. Nothing else to add. Once again, 2 crazy matches, 2 straightforward ones, and hopefully we get some good matchups taking place on Saturday. Check out the comment section quickly. See a new face. See Eddie stopping by. So welcome, Eddie. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you are enjoying the show. See Joe stopping by, who I know is constantly involved in the comment section. Nice to see you, Joe. Hopefully you had a good day betting, either in tennis, college football, basketball, baseball, whatever. Yeah, sorry for the late episode, by the way, but the World Series kind of got crazy, and I ended up having to kind of watch the 9th inning there. But either way, show must go on, so we're here to get into the preview of the matchups on Saturday. Before we get into any of those match previews, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, my book, ADG, using to bet on football, tennis, hockey, basketball. They have a prop builder second to none. You can also use crypto for funding your account for getting nice payouts with crypto. So check out my bookie. You can once again use crypto for funding your account. My book, ADG. Use the code SGPN for a special 100% bet bonus up to $500 from customers. Look at the G promo code SGPN. We're also brought to by Novig, which is the number one prediction market for sports in America. Going to get some great prices, reduced juice on different markets, so check it out. Available in 35 plus states. Download the Novig app. When you do so, you'll get a nice deal with us. Get $50 and spend just $5 if you use the promo code SGPN. Get on the actual Novig promo code SGPN. Spend $5, get $50 in bonus funds. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the quarters. Time to move on into the preview of the semis that are taking place on Saturday. So, going in order, first match between Felix and Bublik. Should be a fun one. Close on the books. A lot closer than the other one, I'll tell you that much. Bublik's favored, minus 120. Felix is around plus 100. For the spread, minus a half for Bublik, plus a half for Felix. The over-under is about 23.5. Bit of juice there on the over, not too much though. But you can find 23.5 or 24.5 if you do shop around. Does it matter? Not really, but you can find different numbers. For the set spread, massive plus money for either player to win straight sets. Bublik in straight sets is plus 210. Felix in straight sets is around plus 220. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 125. So for the actual head-to-head history between the two of them, it has been pretty balanced, actually. They faced off earlier this year in Dubai, and Felix won in 3. Montpellier faced off last year. Bublik won in 3. Basel in 2022, Felix won in straight sets. Hamburg on clay 2020, Bublik won in straight sets, and Felix won in Shanghai 2019 via retirement. So point is, you only have basically 2 meetings within the last 3 years, and it was tied 1-1, and both players did win in 3 sets. So it's been very, very competitive in the matchup earlier this year, though. You had 2 tie breaks to start the match. Then Felix won 6-3 in the 3rd set. But we've seen close battles between the 2 of them, and the odds suggest we might see the same script here for the meeting taking place, of course, in the semis. Now, for the path, Felix was struggling a bit in terms of his form. He ended up retiring against Munar in the last match he played in Basel, beat Komisanya in 3, beat Muller in 3, and beat Altmaier in 3. Then he forgot all about the bad form and buried Vacherat, only dropping 4 games. So I dared him to look sharp. He did. I'll take the loss there, but Felix did play very well. Best match he's played all week. Good for him. For Bublik, he's been incredible. He ended up winning in straight sets against Popyrin, ended up winning in straight sets against Mutet, straight sets against Fritz, and then beat de Minaur in 3, despite not getting broken in the entire match. That's the impressive part. De Minaur, once again, an elite returner, and yet he could not break serve at any point in the match. So Bublik definitely rose to the occasion, and he's playing great tennis. Some of the best tennis he's played in his entire career, and that's why he's got a shot at Turin. We'll see if he gets into the top 10 by season's end, but either way, both guys are playing good tennis. Now, I do think for the actual pricing, do I think Bublik should be favored? Probably. I mean, based on the competition, no offense to Vacherat, but Felix has beaten Vacherat, Altmaier, Muller, and Komisanya. Bublik has beaten Popyrin, who I know has been bad lately, but a reminder, he was a 1,000 champion in Canada a year or 2 ago. Mutet, who we know has had a good season, has made the final multiple times in different events. And we saw him beat Fritz, who's top 5 in the world, and de Minaur, who's top 10 in the world. So Bublik's being better competition, but you could argue Felix, based on the actual A game, can maybe outlast Bublik in a marathon. I'm going for the over in this one, simply put. Bit of a cop-out, because the line's basically a pick'em, and I mentioned a second ago, the last 2 meetings did go to a deciding set. I see a similar story here. I think a breaker is realistic between the 2 of them. Both guys very good at serving. Despite the slow courts, both guys look sharp, and I do think you'll see some momentum swings over the course of this match. But I do think you're going to end up seeing what could be a very, very close battle, similar to the matchup against de Minaur that we saw on Friday. Might come down to a late 3rd set break, and we'll see what happens, but I like the over in this one. For the actual money line, I'll go for Bublik. I just think right now he's in slightly better form. Not by a lot, though. I see it being close. I think it goes 3 sets, so I'll go with the over instead as my favorite play. But if I had to go for a side, I'll go for Bublik. I'll trust in, once again, the current form, and I'll trust in the drop shots, the variety, to just keep Felix off-balanced. And I do think the serving should be, in my opinion, good enough to, I'd say, limit the breakpoint chances that Felix gets, because Felix is still not a great returner. Think that Bublik will look a little bit better and win some big points, but I think it'll be close either way. Might come down to a breaker. We'll see if there's a final set breaker in there, but I think you'll see a marathon. Give me the over in games for this one. Moving on to the next match, a rematch of the Vienna final that we saw a couple days ago between Sinner and Zverev. So for this one, you have Sinner massive favorite -700, and for Zverev you have +500. For the spread, -4.5 for Sinner, +4.5 for Zverev. The over-unders at 21.5 games. Set spread, Sinner in straight sets is -190. Zverev to win ace sets around +145. The over 2.5 sets is about +200. So once again, faced off about a week ago, would have been less than that. And we saw a marathon as Sinner was able to win in 3 sets as he won 7-5 in the final set. Very close, came down to the wire, but Sinner found the break late and held on to win. Not easy, though, as he lost the first set, came back, and he won. So, different dynamic, because that was on Vienna courts, which are relatively fast. Not Basel fast, but still, I'd say above average in terms of pace. We know the courts here in Paris are not probably the slowest courts of the entire season. You could argue either the Laver Cup or Indian Wells are decent competition in terms of the lack of pace, but definitely different dynamic here because you're going to be getting a slower overall pace for the courts compared to Vienna. It's not the exact same carbon copy match that we saw a couple days ago, but we might see the same result. Now, we know Sinner has been battling either an illness or injury because he looked a little bit underwhelming in points against Cerundolo and in points against Shelton. Did it matter? No, because Sinner's a lunatic and he won every match anyway. So it didn't really matter. But either way, Sinner's won every set, which is expected. He won Vienna, only dropping one set to Zverev, and he showed up here, and he's been looking very good. Beat Bergs in straight sets, beat Sarundel in straight sets, and beat Shelton in straight sets. For Zverev, a bit more dicey, but you know what? Wins are wins. We saw him lose in Vienna in the final to Sinner. Showed up here, had a marathon against Karabelli, 1-3, beat Fekina comfortably, and then had a war against Medvedev. You know what? I don't really care about the war aspect against Medvedev. He finally beat the damn guy. He was 1-9 in the last 10 meetings. Props to him there. I do think it's worth something when you finally exercise a demon and you can actually beat a guy who you really had hard times mentally beating. So maybe that builds some confidence, and maybe he gets over the finish line here against Sinner. Am I picking that to happen? No. I think Sinner's going to win. However, I do think Zverev can keep it close like he did in Vienna. I don't mind maybe the team total over for Sinner at 12.5, which you can find at around -130. Didn't hate that. Think Zverev can push one set to the brink and maybe lose in straight sets. We saw Zverev win a set against Sinner. I'll mention the head-to-head, though. We have seen a lot of close matchups in the head-to-head. So currently it is 4-4 lifetime. I will point out that Sinner in his career, I mean, a lot of them are early in their career. Sinner has only won one meeting out of the 8 in straight sets. It was in the Australian Open this year in the final, and he ended up winning without dropping serve at any point. So he won in straight sets. But Vienna, we saw Zverev win a set, lost in 3. Cincinnati, we saw Sinner win in 3. US Open, 2023, Zverev won in 5. Monte Carlo, you saw Zverev win in 3. US Open in 2021, Zverev won in 3. You saw a hardcore challenger in 2020, Zverev won in 2. French Open 2020, and Sinner did win in 4. So once again, Zverev recently has not gotten the better of Sinner. He's lost 3 in a row, but he has been doing some damage as he has won a set in 2 of those 3 meetings. So the fact is, Zverev seems to be the kind of guy that can frustrate Sinner for a little while, but just doesn't have the actual, I don't want to say talent, but I don't think he has the mental toughness to actually get the job done against this current form of Sinner. Or I should say, since Sinner emerged as being a top 2 player in the world. Sinner seems to be a level above Zverev, just how it goes. But Zverev, we saw in Vienna, can find an opening and maybe can win a set. I'm not going to write that off, especially if Sinner ends up having some physical issues like we saw for a couple games against Sarundel and a couple games against Shelton. Maybe you see Zverev get the job done for a set. Maybe. Do I think he's going to win? No. I think Sinner's going to beat him, but it might go 3. So coincidentally, different speed courts still might result in the same outcome, which is Sinner in 3. I didn't mind the spread, actually, for Zverev at plus 4.5, -130. I prefer the team total for Sinner. I think you might get one close set, maybe one they don't have to worry about, or it goes 3, and Sinner can get there whether he wins or loses in 3 sets. So I like the over for the team total for Sinner at 12.5, around -130. Don't mind the value on that. I have a prop that I actually like that I'll mention in a few minutes. But for the actual match, I think Sinner, if he wins in straight sets, would I be shocked? Of course not. However, Zverev's proven over the years that he can get a set in against Sinner. He might lose anyway. So if you want to steal the US Open play, you can go with maybe Sinner in 3. Sinner to win, both players to win a set. That could be an option as well. I think Zverev will keep this match close. Defending champion. He looks good on the courts here. But Sinner has firepower, a good serve, and I do think at the end of the day, he can find enough winners to break through the defense and passive nature of Zverev. So I'll go with the Sinner, once again, win. But I do think 700 is too expensive, obviously. Straight sets, I don't really want either at around -190. Too expensive. So I don't mind the potential over 2.5 sets at +200, but I prefer the actual team total over for Sinner at 12.5, around -130. Anyway, it's going to wrap it up for the 2 matches on Saturday. Time to go on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, I'm brought to you by our sponsor, which is Onyx Fantasy. Play fantasy pick entry, chance to win 5,000 times your entry. Pick higher or lower on different player stats for different sports. You can mix and match if you want to. They also have tennis, so check that out. They have a new offer, though, for new customers. Play just $5, get $100 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. They are doing a great job with college football, the NFL, and they just added NBA, giving away cash prizes every week just for tracking your bets in the app. Track 5 bets of the same type of model that you built, and you can win $1K. And a reminder, we have a nice discount code with Rhythm. Use the code SGPN25. We're down the app for quarter first month. That Rhythm, once again, promo code SGPN25 for a quarter off your first month. Promo code SGPN25. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the semis in Paris. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go back to the prop I kind of foreshadowed in the Sinner-Zverev match. Going to sound dangerous, but I still like it. I'm going to go with Zverev over half a break of serve at -150 on Bet365. It's expensive. I get it, but I like it, and I think the odds are actually kind of cheap at 150. Zverev, we know, is a very good returner. He can be very passive, but he's also very tall and consistent. He'll get balls in play. Now, we've seen Zverev return serve well recently. He has had at least one break of serve in 9 straight matches, and I think you're looking at a good spot for Zverev to get on the scoreboard once via break in this matchup. Only need one break. I think that's pretty, I'd say, realistic for the matchup. Sinner has not been that sharp serving lately. He hasn't broken at least one time in 3 of the last 4, even against Shelton and against Cerundolo, where he won in straight sets. He was broken in both matches. So Sinner's serve has not been as unbreakable as we have seen in the past. Not to mention the court speeds being very slow should help the returners get more balls in play. Zverev, though, has been quite good at returning serve in the past when it comes to getting breaks against Sinner. Even in the 3-set loss against Sinner in Vienna, did get a break in the first set. Zverev has had at least one break of serve in 7 of the 8 career meetings. Now, I am aware a couple of those were before Sinner's peak at this point, but we saw it on fast courts or faster courts a week ago. Zverev got a break. I think you're looking at a spot where Zverev should find openings, and he'll get a couple break points minimum in this match. But slow courts with a good returner, and once again, Sinner, who's also been battling some either illness or injury, who's had a couple of games in a match where he might end up losing some actual form or some steam. Maybe we see Zverev sneak in and kind of steal a break that way. But Sinner's been broken one time in 3 of the last 4 matches, so I think that there's a decent path for Zverev to get the job done here. One break and we win. So that's kind of all we're asking for. Don't mind the price there, -150. That'll be my lock for the show. For my dog, I saw the Bublik and Felix match. The over 2.5 sets was around +125. I'll go for the bigger gamble. I'll go for the Bublik team total over 12.5, parlayed with the Felix team total over 12.5 at +153. Now, unfortunately, Caesars did not have the actual team totals posted yet, and they have the best lines. So I had to compromise for FanDuel. If you see this now, wait until they post it on Caesars. You'll get a better number. But unfortunately, I couldn't wait, so I had to do it now. But Caesars will give you a better price than 153. I just couldn't wait. So I recommend all of you wait to see what the number is. Try the same game parlay there. Their price is always best in market for these same game team total parlays. So check that out. Now, for the team totals for both guys, each of the last 2 meetings were marathons, and both guys did go over their team totals in the same match because they both won 2-3 sets. Might see a breaker in here. Wouldn't shock, maybe a couple. Felix, though, except for the match against Vacherot on Friday, has dropped at least one set in 4 of the last 5. Bublik dropped a set to de Minaur. He fought a couple of set points against Fritz the round prior. I see a war between these two guys, and I think that the serving should be good enough to promote some long sets. So I do see a 3-setter with a breaker in there, and at that point, you're in pretty good shape. So give me, in my opinion, the riskier version of over 2.5 sets at a better plus money price. So I'll go for the team total parlay for both guys. So once again, the lock and no picks. The lock's going to be on Zverev over half a break of serve at -150 on Bet365. For the dog, I'm going to go with the Bublik team total over 12.5, parlayed with the Felix team total over 12.5 at +153 on FanDuel. Once again, for the dog, though, wait until Caesars post lines and bet it there because we'll get a better number. So just once again, something to keep in mind. Till next time, we'll back for the final in Paris. So stay tuned for that. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all